Welcome to the Exceptionally Irresistible Show, featuring conversations with people who have demonstrated exceptional success in their lives and who have some irresistible qualities worth learning from. Come learn how others have created an exceptionally irresistible life. You too can live an extraordinary life, both personally and professionally. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of the Exceptionally Irresistible Show. Here we are on part 2 of this incredible discussion about that rookie team that came from absolutely nothing all the way up to championship. This is an incredible story, and today we are going to hear a different angle of the story. So last week we heard about the discussion from the head coach, the guy who founded it, who put it all together. And we heard how he put together a team of other leaders who helped him out to achieve that incredible achievement. And here we have Caleb Pohlman, who is one of the mentors on the team. And we're going to have a discussion with him today about what it's like to actually be boots on the ground in a sense, and really take this team from, again, absolutely nothing to championship. It's a remarkable story. And here we go. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details and all that stuff, we always ask everybody, Caleb, if you're standing at the top of a rooftop somewhere, you have a message to share to people. I guess the message you shared to the team, whatever it was, what is that message?
So the core message that I've been kind of talking about, preaching about, if you want to even say, is be consistent, build within your means, and set goals. So that's probably the big 3 that in my life and then also on the team that's really been kind of foundational to the success, and that's led a lot of things that I've done through life.
Right, so it was be consistent, be present,
build within your means.
Build within your means, and then set goals.
Set goals. Exactly.
All right, so how do these 3 play into, the robotics, the team, all that stuff? How does that work?
So being consistent, that in the team is played out during the competition side of things. So the way the game works, right, the first 6-7 weeks you're building the robot.
Right.
You have a very tight deadline to design, program, build a from scratch robot, right? But then to be consistent, that kind of goes into when you're playing the game. So we played about over 90 games this last year. And so you need to be consistent in everything that you're doing and how you're playing the game. And to do that goes into building within your means. And so knowing what the team's ability and what they can't do and what we can do is really important. So, which is difficult, right? It's hard to know that, or it's hard to even understand what is it the team can and can't do and what is it we can do. Especially, when you're your first season, your first year doing this, you don't know, can we get parts ordered in that are custom cut for us, and can they come in enough time for us to put them together and test them? And so it's difficult to do that, but I think that was a big thing of looking at what resources we have, what can we do in-house, and what is it that when we do send out, do we have backup plans to that? So that's what kind of folds over to have a game plan and have a schedule. This year we printed out on a 3-foot by 4-foot piece of paper. We had a big, large format printed out calendar. And it was just the season. It was the kickoff day till the end of competition season. And it actually went further than that, which we'll talk about maybe a little later. But that was where we focused in on. And we highlighted the different days that we need electrical to be done by week 4. We didn't know what that meant, but we knew we needed to be shooting for that goal.
Right.
We knew, electrical was week 3. Programming was to get it by week 4.
Right.
And so we went through these, not that we knew what needed done, but we needed to know we need to be ready for this next step by these different times.
So this already is sounding a lot more technical than our previous conversation with Danny last week. Last week Danny was very like, we took a bunch of people, we motivated them, we inspired them, we took them from here, we took them from there. You're now talking a lot more like nitty-gritty detail, like here's how it's done, So my question to you is that here you have these kids. I guess let's even begin. Where do you find these kids? Like they're
so so this year what we did. So it's a community-based team,
right?
And so we have several different schools, homeschool groups also that are part of the team. So it's not one specific region or one specific school that we're able to pull from. We're anyone in that high school age range we're able to work with and mentor. And the big thing is like, especially this first year, because our first team meeting where we had students and mentors meeting at the same time wasn't till I think it was like October 23rd.
Oh wow.
And so what we did, because we only had a short time before the real season kicks off, and that's very fast paced. So what we did was sat down and like one of our mentors, he works a lot in CAD design with Onshape, and SolidWorks is another one that we've worked with, but he set out a several week course on how to just teach the basics and understanding of project management with the CAD software. So that was, I think, big, where we had a goal, which was building a robot cart, because the robot weighs about 120 pounds. So you want a robot cart to push it around.
Sure.
So we had this goal of building this cart, and we had a tight deadline because we wanted it built, before we got into the whole holiday season and everything. So we only had a couple weeks to send out these parts properly and teach the kids how to do that and what that process looks like, right? That way you have a goal, and then you execute on it, and you see it through to finish. So that was really powerful.
So you're picking up these kids from practically everywhere.
Yep.
Like all kinds of walks of life. Now, my understanding is that a lot of these kids have absolute no experience, almost they know nothing about programming in particular,
right.
Building a robot in general or anything really. You're taking these kids from absolutely nothing to,
rock stars.
Rock stars. I mean, like
Yep.
for lack of a better word, but I mean like from 0 to 100 in relatively a short period of time. Here it is that, again, as we heard Danny say, he's on that motivating, on that, on the higher scale, inspirational side. You're talking a little bit more about that detail, like that guy who did the AutoCAD almost like crash course, if you will. How do these two merge together? How does the inspiration and the physical part come together?
So that's the big thing, right? Especially when you get a group together, is getting everyone working towards the same goal ultimately, right? And so the mentor group started meeting back in June, July when a lot of the mentors started meeting, and different people came on at different times. And so we started setting out what's the goal of the team and what are some, from the mentor side, things that we know that we can do. Right. Because we all also have full-time jobs, we have family and other responsibilities. So knowing that at the start and then getting a cohesive goal that we're all shooting for the same thing, that was really big, because we had several meetings where we spent several hours, the one meeting, and just talking about what is it we want the team to be known for? What is it we want the team to do? Right. Because that's then what was able to lead us into different things that we did, and then how you set your goals. Right.
So I'm saying, like, this is incredible, because it really starts from leadership, in a sense, what you're saying. It starts from the top.
Yeah.
You guys are all coming, and again, as I'm going to keep mentioning it is part 2, but Danny was talking about how, he couldn't have done it without mentors like you. He couldn't have done it with his core team, as he likes to call it. So here's all these people. I mean, it's remarkable that he was able to find other, almost like clones in a sense of himself, just in different, different positions, different strengths, different talents. He was able to put this all together. And then you guys have this initial core strong team. Yep. And then that basically trickles down to the team. Could you find like a direct correlation to how that actually takes a rookie team to championship? Is there a way that you could see how that works?
I think the big thing, like when I think of the success that the team had this last year, is yes, there was the core team of mentors. There were other mentors that then came on. There was other partners that, like financially or in-kind gifts, things like that came on. But I think the big thing, like when I look at the end of the season and when we came back from Worlds and kind of reflecting on that, is we all became one as a team. So, you can point to different people at different times.
Right.
But individually, that didn't make that big of a difference.
Right.
But it was together at the end of the season when you look back and you're like, well, we had to have the success in organizing our hotel rooms, right? Or we had to have the success in a lot of the parents of the team. They organized the food. Well, if you went to an event and you had hotel rooms, but you didn't have food, you weren't going to have a successful weekend.
Right.
So there's all these different things that individually you look at and you go, wow, it wasn't that much. But then when you put it all together, that is what made the team unified.
Sure, I could definitely see that. And it's like, I could just, I'm putting myself in that picture, and I'm just like visualizing. If my trip had something wrong, I'm probably going to be tired.
Yep.
If my bed in the hotel room wasn't comfortable, I'm probably going to be cranky.
Right.
If, and then I wake up when I wake up from this, kind of night, and then I have just a really, really bad breakfast or something. I don't know. I'm just like making up as I'm going. But I mean, I could see how these little kind of like chain of events really, really would affect my game when it comes down to when I'm on the field. That makes absolute sense. And I love that you shared that it's each of these individuals, as sometimes it feels almost irrelevant. I mean, just book a hotel.
Right.
I mean, it's easier said than done, but then when it all comes down to it, that plays a major role at the end of reflecting back, it played a role. I mean, that's a remarkable thing. And, just to tie it into business for a quick second, I see this a lot with people that I work with people, they're like, oh, why sweat that small thing? Why sweat that? They're like, why are you sweating the small things? We need to get more cash flow. We need to get more, all these different issues which is a bigger issue. But then by not realizing that there's these small, tiny little, I guess Lego blocks or whatever you want to call them, those play a critical role. And I mean, that's a very, very strong point that you made. And I'm glad you brought it up. It was very important to highlight. So now you guys are there, you guys are, competing, but there's still this thing of like kids who are from nothing in a sense, kids who come from zero. And I mean in terms of even experience, in terms of everything, they have this almost like, at this point, at least in the beginning, sort of a lack of confidence. Is this really gonna work? Is this really gonna, so getting them to the first competition, because you as a mentor, you guys are, you trust your talents, you trust your team, but getting them to that first competition, what's that like?
So that was something different this year, is when we went to the first competition, for a lot of the students, all of them except for one, this is their first time experiencing anything of this level with robotics, right? Oh, wow. And so when we rolled into the pit area where, you have your 10 by 10 foot by 10 foot area to work on your robot and have your tools and everything you could need, we're all kind of looking at our robot, and, another core thing that the team had was keep it simple this year. Sure. Because that was building within our means, was keeping it simple so that when something breaks, we can repair it. But I remember specifically, I was one that after walking through, there's about 30 teams, 28 teams that were there, and walking through and going, maybe we built too simple, because all these teams had like 4 cameras on it, these multi-degree freedom arms and shooters and turrets. And I was like, ours has no degrees of freedom. We don't have anything that actuates out. We have one camera that looks towards the goal for vision, and that's pretty much it. There's at that time, there's one sensor to note its intake, and I was like, guys, we may have went too simple. We'll see how the weekend goes, right? But I think what kind of shocked me there is, even though at that time the only experience the students had was the build season. Right. And preparing for that. And I think what kind of really impressed me was the confidence they had going into it.
Interesting.
And, I know that we did a lot of preparation for each event that we went to. There was a lot of conversations had. Here's what to expect. Here's how things could go, both in the positive and the negative, right? Because ultimately you are playing a game. You're trying to do your best. You're trying to rank up high in the event, but things could happen. And so, you prepare for every situation, and when something happens, how do we pivot to correct or change anything? But I think that was something that was shocking, was how confident the students were.
Interesting.
Particularly, I think it was match 34 that we were playing. It was our third match of the day. And two robots, we're driving, they're driving. It's about 15 miles an hour a piece at each robot's. Boom, we hit each other.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't a crazy hit that we hadn't taken before. It was just the difference in what side the robot was hit. Well, it crumpled the intake. I mean, it destroyed it. And talking about preparation and having goals and things like this, we'd designed the robot in quite a way of being able to be repairable. We had brought a lot of spare parts with us, except for one piece of aluminum, which was the front piece that just got crumpled in that head-on collision. So when we took the robot off the field, set it on the robot cart that the kids had already built, rolled it back to the pits, I honestly thought our event was done. Because it's a 30-inch bar and it has a couple specific holes in it, but I didn't know how or where we would get more of this aluminum to cut it, to drill it, to get it mounted, and what else was broke.
Wow.
Well, what was crazy, so I work mainly with the drive team, right? So I let the pit crew take care of the things, and I heard them ask for, hey, we need to ask teams if they have 1x2 aluminum. Well, before I even turned around and started going to walk to, there's 3 other kids from the team headed out going to talk to teams, going, do you have 1x2 aluminum? So we, in a matter of like 4 minutes, had sourced from 2 different teams this aluminum that we needed.
That's awesome.
And so that was amazing. Then we had another team that was able to go get it cut and then drill the holes. And we missed one match and we were back out there competing.
Wow.
After having what I thought was an event-ending failure.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I think that was, to me, was the amazing thing, was the confidence the kids had going into the event. And then in the face of adversity or when things broke, the confidence they had to be like, well, no, this isn't the end. We got to fix this. We got to move on.
Well, what I'm hearing, and from my angle of expertise, let's just say, I hear a group that was so highly competent, and when I'm saying competent, I'm using that word very, intentionally, in the sense of it came from a leadership. I'm sure that there was something in your training of them coming to this event that gave them the level of, we are competent enough to just overcome anything. I believe that there had to, is that somewhere? Is there something?
I think that goes back to when we talked about building within your means, or playing within your means. I guess you could even change it too. But so on like the core level, there were things that was put in place where, like the tools. We only had the 3 sets of Allens that the team needed to use. So you didn't have to think about the other 7 sizes that we never used on anything.
Right.
So there was like some organizational things that in the very beginning were set up that allowed the students to have the confidence to work on things, because you weren't having to think of all this extra stuff, right? Especially in work, right? There's so many different things that happen.
Sure.
And then there's so many, whether it be advertisements or salespeople reaching out or different thing, that it's like, I've got to focus on my business. And so that's, I think, what was really cool, is the kids were able to focus on working on the robot.
Right.
Because it was just the tools you need and nothing more.
Right.
Just the hardware, just the aluminum, the materials. And so like having that structure set up in the beginning of, okay, what is it I need to see success?
Right.
What are the items? And then just focusing in on that. That was a big thing.
That is huge. So again, there's that level of competency that you guys have instilled in these kids, in these people, and here they are, faced with an adversity.
Yep.
This is really a game-changing moment in a sense. And these kids, once again, reminder, guys, this is kids who have no experience, high school, most of these kids never knew how to program before coming in contact with you guys. And here they are, more than just building a robot, more than just problem solving, but taking the courage and taking the guts, in a sense, of going out to other teams. I mean, this is their competition. This is their, they're there to win them.
Right.
Okay, so let's just frame that, So where does that even come from?
So that goes in, so cooperation. Within the first organization, there's a big one where you want to see your opponents, if you want to call it that, play at their ability, at their highest ability. And so if if they're broke or something's, if I can lend a hand to make them better, that's kind of what that whole cooperation is, right?
Cooperation,
And I think a big one I saw that played out, we're at the, what was this? I think it was maybe the Asheville competition. No, it was the state competition. And you're playing, the field's 57 feet long, 3 teams line up on this side, 3 teams line up on that side.
Right.
Well, I'm there behind the glass as a mentor, as a coach for the drive team, and I see the team on the other side clearly having difficulties with their controller. And I nudged Jimmy and I said, do you have the spare controller in your backpack? Because again, we try to be prepared for different situations, and sometimes we don't even know what they are, but you just try and have. So we had a spare controller on hand, and I said, it looks like they're having problems with their controller. Should we take and lend it to them, even though we're like literally in 30 seconds going to be playing against them? So Jimmy grabs it out of his backpack, hands it to me. So I walk over there, I hand it to him. I said, hey, you can try this remote control. They plug it up. Lo and behold, it works. So there's something in their controller that wasn't working, and it's funny because on the way I'm walking back and I'm like, was that really smart to do? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it was the right decision or wrong decision. What mattered is we're helping each other get to our highest potential. And so at the end of the game, after that 2.5 minute match ended, went over, got the controller, and they were just so appreciative for having that controller to be able to compete at their ability. And I think that was a big one, just seeing that played out where we're not just trying to win the match at whatever cost.
Right.
It's if we're going to win the match, we want to know that we did our best, and we want to know that the other side was doing their best.
Right. And that's a huge one for me. I mean, that's the one that I take away. And I was at a few of your matches, and I was watching, from all the way up there and kind of looking down and seeing this remarkable. It's almost like a dance when you're looking from up there. I mean, I don't know what it looks like from your angle, but
Chaos,
from up there, it looks like this dance of all these it's almost hard to know where's that robot. I'm only going after one. I'm going after yours. That's all I'm going after. But it was just funny. And you could see it even from a spectator view, and it does add to the show. It does add to the, what we're experiencing. Right. I remember the one that you guys had, this one robot also got stuck or something. Yep. I don't remember what its position was, but it was the competing robot, and your robot came in, stopped whatever it was doing, turns around, goes back to that robot, and kind of frees it, looses in or whatever, and then it's back to game, What I'm taking away, and I wonder, to me, what I'm taking away here is that I'm so good at what I do. And I'm saying this in a context of as a team, I'm so confident. I've built this thing right. I've done this right. I've practiced. I'm so good. I don't see the competition as a threat. That I guess is that a piece of the cooperation? Is that something you guys see in your team, or?
I mean, I think the big thing is we're confident in what we've done.
Right.
We know what the level of ability is, and at the end of the day, if I go out there and I know the other team wasn't playing at their best, it's almost a letdown. And so whether it's a win or lose outcome, you want everybody out there on that field to be playing at their best, because that's when when you do have success and you do win, that you truly deserved it. Right. So that's a big thing. I know when I was a student on a team that I had, Joe Danner was our mentor at the time, and I learned a lot of things from him in that organization and setting goals and things like that. And so for me, having been a student on the team and seeing that played out, and then now being a mentor on a team and being able to help foster and help care for that, I think that's been a huge benefit. So.
I think what still is not fully answered in this, since this is the second part and this is the last of this segment, I think what's not answered yet, I don't feel at least, and maybe, how do you take a rookie team to full championship? I mean, all this is nice said and done, but at the end of the day, you took kids from absolutely nothing, this is zero, to practically top 100 of the world. What was the 50-something?
It was like 56 or 58, somewhere around there.
That is still an incredible and remarkable. I mean, you could be the best, but I mean, there's only a certain level of best you could be at your first shot,
It really does go back to, from the mentor side, we really did preach heavy and keep it simple, build within our means, setting those goals. That was critical. And I will say this, it took a lot of work to keep focused on that the whole season.
Sure.
A big thing we do is in that first couple of days when we go, okay, here's what we kind of want our robot to do. We write those out in paper and we print them up and put them all around the shop. So that way, in like 4 days or a week or 3 weeks, when we're like, well, what if we tried this? We could go back to our goals and say, does that line up with what we need to be doing? And then I think another big one is, you have a goal. And I'm thinking specifically this year we had climbers on the robot that were supposed to be on there.
Right.
Well, when we looked at our goal and our time schedule, we were like, man, it doesn't look like we're actually going to have enough time to properly get these climbers attached and tested and have the programming team have enough time to get good autos. So as a team, we had to kind of sit through and talk about, which feels terrible when you're like, well, we don't have enough time. Well, now we're sitting through and talking about, well, which do we need to do and which do we need to put priority on? And so that was a big one where, the team, we came together, we sat down and we talked about, okay, we could have climbers, here's the point value it would get, things of this nature, or we could take this time and put that more towards building autonomous routines. So that was a big one too. But I think, when you go back to asking, how do you get a rookie team from zero to world championship? It really does. It goes back to the planning, setting your goals, reminders of your goals, and keeping it simple. So that's the ultimate of this is, we talked about that calendar that we printed off. It was actually for the whole year, but we really only highlighted till what was the end of the season. And what's crazy is our season has been extended because there's what's the off season, and there's different events that we play locally and some around there, but there's one big game that's played out in California. And it's called Chezzy Champs, and it's invite only. A lot of people apply to get invited to go to this. So our team, almost off a whim, but also was kind of like, man, it'd be really cool if we actually could go. We applied for this, right? So it was the day of registration and we were like, should we go ahead and apply? Okay, yeah. And it's a very long essay. There's a whole bunch of things to fill out. And so we applied, and I forget, maybe it was a week or two later, they reached out and said, we're happy to say that you've got an invitation to this. So there's 46 teams that are going there. Every team there is almost, they're a top 75 team in the world. And most teams, at least 12 of the teams have multiple Einstein appearances, which is the highest level of gameplay. So that's, when we printed off our calendar, we had goals and we set and we highlighted, and we didn't even think about. So I'd say that's a big thing, is especially in business and in your personal life, is you may have goals and you may have things that you're striving for, but maybe even think a little bigger than you think you can.
Right. Just go for a little bit more. Yeah. And I mean, one thing that Danny said that I think highlights to me is that at some point you guys were sitting on the sidelines and other teams started coming to you as if you're like the team to talk to, the team to beat, and the team to be associated with. And that's remarkable. And I find it so inspirational. This is like, as we wrap up here, I find it so inspirational that it's really that simplicity. And like when I hear, when I talk to people, like, keep that inspiration up, it's better than motivation. Like there's a lot of things that I talk about. That inspiration. And a lot of people look at me and like, is this like some woohoo thing? Is it some like, do I have to cast a spell on my team or something? And I'm like, actually, no, it's as simple as just having a simple goal. All of you have a simple vision. Everybody could, and align your visions together, This is not just your team and not just Danny's team that you dream of being the best, team in the world or whatever it is. But this is like kids, for whatever reason, they are joining your team, is because what you're doing is that you're aligning each of your visions to one greater goal. And that to me is extremely inspirational to hear this. It's actually that simple. It's really that bottom line simple. So my last question to you is that, all of us are inspired by different things. What inspires you? What keeps you going? What drives you?
What inspires me? I would say my family, my mom, my dad. That's a big thing, because growing up, you see them do different things and how they act or react to situations. So that's a big one, is just whether it be my siblings or my parents, just family in general. But so that's probably the number one for inspiration. But I have to say, it's been very inspiring to be on this rookie team.
Sure.
and to see these kids who, at the start maybe didn't drill anything, didn't run a wrench or anything like that, and come out of it not just successful physically and with awards and banners, but also emotionally.
Wow.
That was a big thing. Yeah.
Wow. Well, all I could say is I'm looking forward to the next season.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about it. My kid is excited. He's already screaming like red and blue alliance and all that. We're very excited. So thank you again for this incredible discussion. And that does wrap up this episode of the Exceptionally Irresistible Show. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye. That's it for this week's episode of the Exceptionally Irresistible Show. What has inspired you to take action in your life? Take action now. Take the first step, share it with a friend, or write it in a journal. Subscribe and share this episode, and remember, you too are exceptionally irresistible.